everyone, welcome to the next video from this page of mini houses from Magical Worlds by Johanna Basford. Now Johanna has been releasing her book tour, and she did a live yesterday. I'm recording this way in advance, and she coloured these two houses, but I'm still going to be colouring them as part of this series, so you may have coloured along with her or coloured something similar to her, but I'm going to be doing it myself, and I'm going to try and forget how she did it, although I might not, and try and do it my own way, but I might find that I'm just accidentally copying what she did just because I don't know, maybe I do that. Right, but we're going to do this one today, so she didn't do this one, so it doesn't matter. I'm going to start with the leaves. Let me think what colours there are certain colours I always pick in this set, so but I think these leaves look like they might be bluey green leaves. Why do I say that? I have no idea. It just feels a bit like that to me, so I'm going to start with the phthalo green, which is here. Castle Art Soft Touch, by the way, sorry, didn't mention it a bit earlier. Now I'm not going to do all my leaves exactly the same. I'm trying to move away from that a little bit because I do tend to do that. So stalk here, stem, and a little bit of this one. So I'm going to do them a few different colours for the leaves, but similar. And I'm just going to hope it works. This leaf, I think that bit there is the bottom of it there. Like that. So maybe I'll do the back leaves slightly. No, I don't know. I think I'll do it a bit random. You can decide if you like it, and if you don't, you can just do them all the same or do them your favourite greens. And you can see that I'm just fading it down a little bit. We're going to put another, it's not very well faded, I'm going to put another colour in here. Let's leave a couple and do this one. I'm going to try and keep my colours similar but not the same, and we'll just see how it all goes. It's been lovely watching Johanna's videos, I have to say. Now, I don't tend to watch loads of people's videos. I'm just going to do this end one. Partly because I don't really have the time. Partly, I suppose, I was going to say I don't like to be influenced by other people, but I really am, and I can't really get away from that, I don't think. I'm going to use the phthalo green light next. I've got to find it. Oh, I found it quite quickly. So I don't think it's massively different to the phthalo green, but I might just use it for the base of these other leaves and see if it'll look a little bit different. See, it's a little bit different. Yeah, it's partly that I feel like I ought to start watching a few more videos, really, just to see what people are doing, what's trendy and stuff, but I know I don't have to keep in with the trends and I should do my own thing, but sometimes I know that people see an effect that's being shared a lot on social media or on videos and they want to have a go at it, something like that. But then I do look at Instagram, I do look at people's pictures on there, so I do see what's going on a little bit, because I know there was that trend for doing a sort of galaxy background and white over the black picture type thing. I'm really explaining myself well, aren't I? No, there was a trend where you got a page and you coloured it all over with a galaxy background in watercolour paint, and then you went over all the black lines with your white pen. I did try that myself and it was a disaster, so I decided not to demo that one. Leave it to someone who can do painting. Right, I'm going to go for the phthalo turquoise next. We sort of being very phthalo-y today. Now what I'm going to do with this is, rather than doing it all on the one, so I could go for all these slightly darker ones and put it on the ends of those, but I'm going to randomize it again, so I'm going to put it sometimes on the end of these, sometimes these, so mix it up a bit, hopefully. So I'm going to just give it a sharpen first before we get too carried away. There we go, phthalo turquoise. So I'm going out with my son this morning, which be nice. He needs a few shirts for when he does his work placement. It's a while in the future, but we've just been thinking about it because he had talked about getting some for Christmas, but I actually thought that it's not a very fair Christmas present, because we had promised the boys that we would pay for their basic clothes and food and things for them while they were at uni. Now, although a placement he should be paid, we sort of thought, well, we'll pay for his sort of initial clothes, and if he wants anything more fancy once he starts getting paid, then you know, he can pay for that himself. But also my other son is likely to be not need such smart clothes because he's going into IT, so it feels a bit unfair to make one buy really smart clothes and then not the other. So I'm just going with him really to have a look at some shirts. Now, our town doesn't have a great many clothes shops. I need another colour to finish that off. I am going to use the mint green. It's quite a significantly lighter shade. Where is it? Or is the mint green light a bit darker? No, the mint green. In the golds, the mint green light is darker than the mint green. It drives me batty. It doesn't take much to drive me batty though. Mint green. Yeah, our town has a independent department store which has designer brands. So it have like Barber and sort of things like that. So it's like, I don't think we'll be going there. It has a Peacocks, which actually don't seem to sell men's work clothes. And there used to be an independent gentleman's clothing shop, which was very expensive, but I think it's closed down. Yeah, it has. I'm thinking about it. I might just go over these a bit as well, because looking a bit sparse, in the sense that I can see more white paper through than I want to. Yeah, so our town a bit rubbish for men's clothes. It always has been. When they were young, I used to always buy their clothes from Woolworths because it was the only shop that sold boys' clothes. And there was a Peacocks, which still is. And we used to have a shop called M&Co, but they've gone. The whole brand has gone out of business and closed down. That's about it. We've got sort of millets, but you know, that's okay if you're going to be I don't know, if you want to go climbing or something. It's like outdoor wear. But anyway, so we're going to go to a supermarket and look at their clothes, because I'm going to go to Tesco actually. It's about, for me, it's a sort of 45-minute walk. When I'm with my son, whose legs go up to his ears, his legs are so long. His legs go up to my chest, and yet he is only 5 inches taller than me. His legs are like huge. So his strides are absolutely enormous. So keeping up with him is quite hard, and he'll walk with me because he's polite, but he'll sort of force me on fast, which is good for me, of course. There we go. I'm quite pleased with that, because we can see they're slightly different colours, but they still all sort of tone in together really well. So I think that's okay. It's a little bit different for me. Now, I've got a few bits of bushes down here, and I feel like we should match them in to our colours of our leaves, just to sort of match it up. So I'm just grabbing all my greens that I've used and finding the darkest one, which I think was the phthalo green, and I'm going to use the sort of base of these bushes. I'm going to do sort of round and round, slightly randomy bits of colour like this. I did this on the one above as well, and I rather liked it, she says modestly. And then what should we go for next? I'll go for the phthalo turquoise. I'm just randomly grabbing one now and just add a few bits. So anyway, we're going off to have a look anyway, and then I've got to get some groceries, and he'll be able to help me carry them home, which is nice. Phthalo green light. My other son is staying at home and doing some studying, and my husband's home, so he'll be able to hopefully keep an eye on him, but he's not very good at doing that. And mint green. I'm just going to finish it all off. I'm going to go over all of it with this. Yeah, so we'll see. But the son I'm with has actually got some study to do, but he says it's really easy, good study. It was basically, he's finished his assignment and he's got to put it together in a report in Word, and he thinks it'll be really fun and it's the good bit. I loathe doing that personally, but I'm not doing it, so that's okay. I'm glad he thinks it's good. Now, I feel that this house would look really nice in purple, this plant pot. I'm thinking, because we haven't done any purple yet at all on this page. Castle Arts have some lovely purples, and I think purple goes well with these bluey green shades. So I'm going to start with the mulberry. Is that it? No, bear with me, I will find it. There it is. So mulberry, so you just use your darkest purple, and we're going to do the sort of edges of our plant pot. This plant pot, when I first saw it, reminds me of a potty. Now, I know in the USA you sometimes call the loo the potty, but the potty for us in the UK is one of those little plastic nowadays things that you sit kids on to train them for going to the loo. I don't know if that's what you still call them in America anyway. And my aunt used to have a China one. They used to have a handle on, of course. My aunt, if they're China, a China one with a handle on, and it had a lily of the valley design painted on it. It was absolutely gorgeous, and she used it as a plant pot. Now, I expect that they would have used it back in the day, because when my aunt was growing up, the house only had an outside loo in the garden, and so in the middle of the night you didn't go down the garden, so I gather. Fortunately, I've never had to experience this. We're going Purple Lake Deep next. If I can find it, it's my favourite colour. There it is. So in the night they wouldn't go down the garden in the pitch black and freezing cold. They would use the potties, and so maybe it was one from them, or it may have just been a sort of decorative plant pot that looked like one, but I have no idea. But I just remember it on her windowsill. I think it was in my grandfather's bedroom actually, because my aunt always lived with her father. She looked after him. It was you know, when his wife died, she was 16 when her mother died, and she went back home. She'd been in service, so she was working in a house with living accommodation. So she went back home and had to look after all her brothers and sisters, all 11 of them, and her father. So she went back home, and then she just always lived with him because she didn't have the opportunity to marry, because she was always looking after the family. We're going to move on to lavender. So anyway, so she lived with my grandfather, and until he died, and then she had a few years on her own before she did. But he was an interesting chap. He used to tell great, hilarious, naughty stories. I mean, they weren't that naughty, but back in the day, from when he was a child, he was a bit of a... he could be a bit naughty. He used to play a terrible game where him and his friends, well, he would always instigate it. So he would grab a stick, you know, that had fallen off a tree, and poke it in some dog's mess, and then chase his friends with it. Ugh, vile. And they used to call it drawing the rusty sword. And then, but he said that if he'd ever got any on his clothes, his dad would have whipped him with his belt, you know. So he said I said, well, what happened when you got... He said, as soon as it was someone else's turn, I would run home. Because you know, as soon as if someone else did it, he would just go home because he was too scared of his father to... but he was quite happy to get other people into trouble, so it seemed. Right, we're going to use the indigo light to create a little bit of shadow underneath here. He also used to tell me a story of they would go into the sweet shop. The sweet shop was run by a little old lady, and they would go in and they would ask for a quarter a quarter of some sweet, but it would always be the one right on the top shelf. And she would get the ladder out and climb up carefully and measure out the sweets, and then they'll go, "Oh, I haven't got any money," and run off. And she would say, "I'll tell your dad," but she didn't know him. But they would also do it in the chip shop. So go and ask for a farthing's worth of chips or whatever it was. I don't know, I'm pretending I know what these monies mean. I don't. I'm going to use some lemon yellow for our windows, just while I'm thinking about it, and then run off. So, I mean, chips probably not too bad. I suppose the paper's soggy, you can't give it to anybody else. But, because of course back in the day chips were wrapped in newspaper. Chips, by the way, being fat, long pieces of potato deep fried and served warm, and potato chips, but really thick, chunky, delicious. Anyway, but the guy who owned the chippy knew his dad, so we're actually going to colour these lights this colour as well. I think that's what it is, lights, fairy lights, that's my thought. If they did that, his dad would beat him because he would find out about it. I mean, luckily now in the UK, smacking of kids is against the law. But back then it wasn't. We're going to do something a little bit different to what I might normally do. We're going to use the mauve to colour the windowsills and the door frame. Normally I go darker for those sorts of things. We're going lighter today. I did get smacked as a child. My sister always thinks it was terrible, but I think it was, it was never that hard. It was enough to sort of give you a shock and make you think, and it was just the way it was back then. I'd never hit my children once. Once I hit one of my boys because he used to bite, and I was advised to give him a smack to stop him doing it. I couldn't. I sat there thinking, right, next time he bites me, lavender light, I'm going to do the curtains. I'm just going to go over them all with a really light layer first, so be very careful here, just light layer. I thought next time he bites me, I'm going to hit him. So he bit me and I smacked him on his bottom. He had a nappy on, and he just looked at me and then carried on, because I didn't hit him hard enough, because I just didn't have it in me to hit him, and I just patted him. Oh, I can't hit my little baby. So I used to put him in the naughty corner instead, on the naughty step, which some people say is bad, but I don't know, he doesn't do it anymore, thank goodness. He did do it once in primary school, my goodness. And how old was he then? Not sure, but I talked to him about it. He said, but it was so and so was really annoying me. And I was like, yeah, I know, that child is annoying, because I can see how annoying he is, because I see him when I collected him from school. But I said, we can't just go biting people that annoy us. So adults don't bite people when they annoy them, they have to find a different way of dealing with it. I was like, okay. So he did stop after a while, thank goodness. I mean, that's the only time we did it at school. I'm looking for my purple lake. I can't find it. Is that it? I'm confused, because look at the colour of that. But on my swatch chart, it's not that colour. No, it isn't. It's a lot lighter. I'm going to do this for the door. Just a gentle layer first. You can see it's certainly not as pink as it looks on this end. So anyway, yeah, he did stop eventually. He does get angry outbursts sometimes. He'll shout, just shout. His dad does the same though. So it's I do tell him not to. It's very hard not to shout though, isn't it, if you're cross? I mean, if that's what you're inclined to do. And actually it's better to shout than to hit or punch or bite. So, you know, and I think some people just do shout. I remember my dad saying to me, if you do that, I'm gonna shout so loud the whole street will hear me. Fortunately, he didn't need to. I'm going back to my indigo light, and I'm going to do a little bit of shadow behind where these bushes are, just along the edge of them. But I think upbringings have changed a lot. Sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worst. I think I never know what to do with these windows. I think I'm going to put a little blue line around here just to sort of thicken that, to make it look a bit like there's a frame there. I think parents are much busier these days. You know, often both parents are working, and it might not be through choice, and I think sometimes that can have an impact on the child, but it depends on the child and what they do while parents are at work. I'm going to use my Jelly Roll 8 to put a little bit of I'm going to try and put some lines across the window like I did on our boot one, to make it look a bit like there's glass. I don't know how well it will show up, but I want to try and make the effort. I think some childcare is really good and some isn't. If you're with grandparents or other family members, I think that can be good sometimes, but it's as I say, every situation is different and we can't judge, you know. And sometimes you think, well, they shouldn't have had kids if blah, but actually their circumstances might have changed since they had them, and or they might just think what they're doing is good and it might suit that particular child. Both my children have really different needs with regards to parenting, so you know, we can't judge according to what our children would need. Anyway, I'm gonna go stop wittering. I'm sort of wondering whether to do something with those dots on the leaves, but I think I'm gonna leave them green. I could put some white dots on them, but leaves don't really have white dots, so I'm going to leave it. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope that you have a super day and happy colouring.